All right, so our second speaker today, as we said, is a community member. So just a couple of reminders, guys. Please make sure your masks are on properly, and then please make sure you put your phones away for the duration of Mayor Mike Snider's speech. This is just a cool opportunity here. I feel like there's not many opportunities for you guys to hear from the people that are the big players in our community. And obviously our mayor is one of them. There's some really exciting things happening in our community. So I think this is going to be a cool kind of interactive talk. And I think you guys should think of some questions along the way to be able to ask the mayor. Because I don't know how many times you get this opportunity to have him on a spotlight up here and just kind of drill him with questions, which would be kind of fun to watch. So think about those as you're doing this. So without any further ado, he's going to be talking about downtown revitalization, and this is Mayor Mike Snider.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Very good. Hello everybody, how you doing? By applause, how many would rather be in a class over here? That's what I thought. Good call, Joe, good call. But for those of you who are in Mrs. John's Chinese class, hold on, because I got a special treat at the end, an opportunity for you to earn some bonus points. Well, you know, when Mr. Miller first called me to speak here, I was very, very excited. And then the reality hit me. I'm 49 years old. I have a 26-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old granddaughter. I am so far removed from teenage life. Am I going to be able to come up with a topic that you all will be able to relate to? You know, I have a vague recollection of my own high school years, but the one thing I do recall is I don't think I ever was given the opportunity to interact with, as Mr. Miller put, community leaders. And I certainly know it didn't happen in this building because it wasn't built until after I graduated. And that train of thought led me back to February of 2018. Back then I was considering running for mayor of the city of Port Clinton, and I met with two groups of people in our community. On one side, there were about 200 adults ranging in age from their 20s up to well past their 80s. And the other group was Mrs. Fork's government class. And I asked both groups as individuals one question. I gave them each a piece of paper with 13 generalized issues facing the city of Port Clinton. And I asked them to select 5 and rank them as their priority. And to my surprise, although in slightly different order, both groups came up with the same top 5. Attitude of the citizens, downtown revitalization, job creation, city finances, and roads and infrastructure. And it's that downtown revitalization component that I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today and how you might be able to help. Now, by the definition itself, revitalization means bringing up from a lesser condition. So downtown revitalization is bringing the downtown up. But what happened to our downtown? Well, the reality is what happened to the downtown of Port Clinton over the past couple of decades is very common in communities our size and all throughout the country. One of the things, there's been that ongoing conflict between mom and pop establishments and the big box stores. Let's face it, I admit to it. It's easier to walk into a big box store and buy a gallon of milk, a package of socks, and a crescent wrench. As if I know how to use a crescent wrench. But, you know, if you think about it, if you had to do that in downtown, you'd have to go to multiple spots if you could even find those things in the downtown area. Another component that led to the condition of the downtown over the decades is the space required to conduct business. Today's business climate and the things that need to get done require a little bit different space than something in a building built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Parking is another issue. And this one I have a pretty good argument against, but you know, our downtown was laid out before the car was invented. So cars are kind of an afterthought on how to get people to the storefronts. But the reality is, even if in downtown Port Clinton you have to park a half a block away from your ultimate destination, chances are it's still closer than having to park in the handicapped parking spots of a big box store to get to the front door. So I think there's something to say about that. Zoning, and I won't get too much into zoning, but zoning hasn't kept up with the needs of the business community. And that's all over the place. Most of the big box stores are in the outskirts of town in areas where there may not be zoning or where zoning has recently been implemented, and zoning plays a critical part in all of this. the age of the buildings, and the age of the infrastructure. You have to have adequate water supply, and you have to get the sewage away. And in many cases, until recently, we just completed the downtown streetscape. It wasn't the greatest condition. Changing demographics of the population play another key component in this. The average age of Port Clinton today is much, much older than the average population 40 years ago. And that changes the way people shop and exchange commerce of goods. And then a little bit to urban sprawl. People are living farther and farther away from the downtown city center. So why is the downtown important to a community? Well, it's the heartbeat of the community. When you have a strong heartbeat, you have a strong community. And with a strong community, you have a strong downtown. There's an idea of memories, the good old days. You know, my parents still talk about a place called Timlin's. I don't know what it was gone well before me. But that was a hot spot to go in downtown Port Clinton. Socialization. We're social creatures. We like to be with other people. Downtown provides that opportunity to be social. And the sense of community and community pride, that feeling that, hey, we have something a little bit better than that podunk town 12 miles to the west of us. Not that I'm going to name names or anything. So what do we need to do to bring back our downtown? And just like the causes, there's really no one solution, but there seems to be a common core with all of the solutions. You know, in some cases, revitalization is stimulated by the renovation of a historic building. Over in Sandusky, the State Theater is a prime example. Here in Port Clinton, as a community, we seem to stick our chest out a little bit more when a light goes on the first floor of the Island House. Unfortunately, we kind of get deflated a little bit when that light goes off and that business closes, but that's an example. A sports team moving in. Now, I'm not going to suggest that the Redskins are going to play basketball on Madison Street, although that'd be kind of cool. But think about the Cleveland Cavaliers. When I was your age, the Cavaliers played 30 minutes from downtown in Richfield, Ohio. The Cavs moved to downtown. The Indians relocated, built a brand new stadium before you were born. And that area that was blighted is now a thriving, less COVID, a thriving area. A new attraction, or something called an angel investor, comes into town. The prime example of this would be the Jet Express for Port Clinton. Again, before you were born, the Jet Express used to be at North Jefferson Street. It was only about 15, 20 years ago that they moved to their current location. And then even something as simple as MOM, Meals on Madison, created that sense of socialization and lifting up the attitude of the citizens. Now, all of these things have a common element. They changed the foot traffic in our downtown. They changed the perception of that area, and they changed to a positive attitude for our downtown by our citizens. The concept of activity breeds activity. Again, going back to the socialization. So when did our downtown revitalization actually begin? It's difficult to pinpoint, but if you wanted to pick one date in time, it would be September 22nd, 1998. And don't worry, that's not going to be on the test later. But on that date, City Council adopted Ordinance 22-98. And that ordinance directed the city's safety service director, not the mayor. The mayor doesn't run the city. It's someone called the safety service director who does the day-to-day operations. That ordinance directed the safety service director to seek out grants and other funding opportunities to revitalize streetscapes, the roads, sidewalks, light posts, curbs, for portions of Perry, Madison, and Jefferson. That was all stimulated by the change in foot traffic patterns caused by our angel investor, the Jet Express. But the reality is that September 22nd date was just a final solution to a question, a simple two-word question that was asked several months earlier. And that question is, what if? What if we as a community try to improve ourselves through downtown revitalization? And since then, that question has been asked and answered several times. And here are some examples. You may or may not know these people. Kelly and Billy Rigoni, the owners of Northern Exposure Candle Company, at one point looked at each other and said, what if we made candles? And a fellow by the name of Popcorn Bill, Great Lakes Popcorn, looked at his wife Kit and said, what if other people like popcorn just as much as we do? How many of you have had a burger at Snider's downtown? If you haven't, they're fantastic. They're delicious. Well, Amy Slater said, what if I make the best damn hamburgers in town? Well, when you're done with that hamburger, walk a few doors down to McCarthy's and realize that a family got together at one point and said, what if we build an Irish pub? And now most recently, there have been quite a few people asking what if, as many of the abandoned and vacant buildings in downtown have sold, but one particular, the Hirschberger building downtown, 5 buddies from high school that graduated before me, some of them stayed around here to raise their families, others moved away and made their fortunes, but they recently got together and said, what if we reinvest in our downtown area to bring something new and exciting? You know, the thing is, what if we didn't have these individual dreams and aspirations? What if we didn't have the opportunity to ask ourselves, what if you don't have the opportunity to ask yourself, what if? The reality is there's only so much the city can do. The rest is certainly up to the individuals in our community. The mayors, city councils, other elected officials have done what we can with the streetscapes in downtown. Now it's time to embrace the entrepreneurs, the dreamers, and those with a passion to ask themselves, what if? It's time to embrace the what ifs in our community and the what ifs that sit in this room. You all have hobbies, passions, things that you enjoy. What if you turn those into a career? What if you asked yourself, what if? I, for one, am waiting for the answer. Now, earlier I mentioned that some of you taking Mrs. Jong's Chinese class might have an opportunity for extra credit. And I know if she's in the room, she's nervous about what I'm going to say here. But a few years ago, I asked myself, what if you learned Mandarin Chinese? So here's your extra credit. If you can translate this correctly, Ms. Jong will give you extra credit. 大家好，我是王麦卡，我的伯克利诺海西藏，对，我好，我饿了，请给我牛肉汉堡，珍珠鲜奶茶，谢谢，加油，再见。
That was a dramatic exit. We're going to bring you back out here for some questions. Are you supposed to ask them right now if anything can translate it?
They probably won't be able to right now.
Okay.
I might swap them off.
Okay, let me get you on. Oh, you're on.
Am I? Oh.
There you go. You're good.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah, right.
Any
Okay.
questions?
Yeah, questions for Mayor Snider. All right. Mr. Phillips. So what exactly made you want to run for mayor of Portland?
That's a darn good question. Some days I wonder myself. But, you know, giving back to the community, it's kind of been a family tradition. I'm 6th generation Portland. My granddaughter is 8th generation. I grew up with grandparents that were involved in the community. My parents were very much involved in the community. It just seemed like the right thing to do. I've been involved in quite a bit of different events, festivals in town. I served on city council for 8 years prior to running for mayor. It just seemed like the right thing to do. I asked myself, what if you run for mayor? So.
All right, other questions? I have one. Okay, go ahead.
As mayor, what has been your favorite part about it?
What's my favorite part?
Yes.
Now that I'm done interacting with people like this, I was really nervous. No, helping people. You know, we've got a lot of struggles, and the past 9 months have just added to the issues facing our community. I think I just pulled down this off. you don't hold it. Okay. Can you hear me now? All right. Sorry about that. Just helping people, finding solutions to problems. We're currently working on a $16 million infrastructure project. That's the biggest in the history of the city of Port Clinton. We have some long-standing issues with our water lines, sewer lines, roads. Those aren't sexy things to talk about, but it's really important that the water comes in and the sewage goes away, because people get upset and it's the opposite. So helping people is really, I know that's kind of a generic answer, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Trying to find solutions that others haven't really thought about, and finding ways to make those happen.
All right, I have a question for you. So you hinted at a couple cool things happening in the community. Is there anything you can tell us today?
Well, I mentioned, I can't get too specific, but I mentioned the Hirschberger building. And the Hirschberger building, if you don't know, right in downtown Port Clinton, you have McCarthy's. I didn't touch anything. It might be down. Here, let's switch. Yeah, in down.
Here. Hello.
Yeah, okay. In downtown, you have McCarthy's, and heading south, where the beautiful salon is, all the way down to Snider's. That's the Hirschberger building. Those 5 guys purchased that and have some neat ideas. Going farther south on the Madison Street, where Rosie's is located, right next to that is a place called the Emporium. And I'll be very honest with you, city officials were talking for some time about figuring out a way to acquire that building and demolishing it, because there have been some shady things going on there. There's some other health and safety concerns. Right in the middle of the summer, a family came in and bought that. And this one I can tell you because it's out there. They're going to completely renovate the building. They're going to make the upstairs their primary residence and the downstairs a bakery. Just around the corner, at the old Underwoods, which you may not know where that is, that building is also recently sold, and that's going to be a fitness center. And if you haven't figured out between fitness center and bakery where I'm going to be most of the time, there's someone seriously looking at the old City Hall. You know, that's been an eyesore in our downtown for quite some time. The lot at the corner of 2nd and Madison, where there used to be a building that the city tore down, the city then acquired that parcel of land, that too is sold. And then just Monday, the Oddfellows building, that's the 3-story building on the alley right across from the Huntington Bank in downtown, that too is sold. They all have some amazing ideas. We were contacted by, this one isn't official, but we were contacted by an individual who's looking to purchase a rather large building. Actually, he's put in an offer to do it on North Madison Street with an amazing concept for Port Clinton. And the really cool thing about all of these things that have happened in the past 5-6 months is every single one of the people that I talk to and the Chamber of Commerce talks to relates it back to Meals on Madison. That mom had one goal in mind, and if you remember back when that started, it was late April, early May, and the governor was starting to leave hints that he was going to start to open up our world again, but at limited capacity. Most communities have a number of restaurants sufficient to be supported by their population. Because Port Clinton and Sandusky and a few others get an abundance of visitors and second homeowners, downtown Port Clinton has a glut, too many restaurants to be supported only by our downtown businesses. And we thought, oh boy, we've got all these restaurants that employ all these people that pay taxes. How can we keep these open? Because there's too many of them and they're going to be at half capacity with seating. So we came up with this crazy idea of putting picnic tables out on the street, blocking it off, to allow those folks, if you remember, we were all eating at the same table, staring at the same wallpaper for a month and a half, and it was driving me nuts. Give people an opportunity to get out of their house, get some food they haven't had in a while, sit outside, do all that fun stuff. It's so much more than that. I mentioned Kelly and Billy Rigoni. They're not shy about mentioning this. Every weekend this summer, when you compare their sales in their shop this year to their sales last year, this year was up hundreds of % more than they did last year. I happen to work in a hotel in downtown Port Clinton, and I manage a condominium rental company. There were people that would come in to check into the hotel and ask the front desk folks, where's this mom thing we've heard about? We were going to go over to the islands, but we're going to stay here instead. You know, that concept of Port Clinton being a parking lot for Clinton Bay, that might be changing. That might be changing. That's a good thing. That means more job opportunities for everybody. So you keep going back to the changing of foot traffic and changing of the attitude. You saw people downtown. I had more calls about seagull poop than any other previous mayor combined. And the reason being, there were people downtown this summer getting crapped on, which is a good thing. As crazy as that sounds. Because before, people were just driving through and not stopping. So this whole attitude and mentality of downtown is changing. It's becoming the cool place to be. And that's one of the things I'm proud that my team at City Hall came up with, and we were able to not only save downtown, but really boost that revitalization in our downtown. I know that was way more than you asked, but
yeah,
that was the answer.
Okay, one more question. So I was actually at this cool committee meeting last night. I don't know how much you can tell about that, but they did talk about it being a space for high school kids where if those of you that are artists or you play, like you would have a complete grand piano available to you. If you like to write poetry, you'd be able to go read your poetry. A place to hang out which hasn't existed. I don't know how much you can tell about that, but that's coming sooner than later.
Most certainly is.
Yeah.
You heard me use my horrible Chinese a little bit ago. I've been fortunate enough to travel to Taiwan twice in the past couple of years. In a town in southern Taiwan, Kaohsiung, it's a town of about 3.5 million people. They have the Pier 2 Art Center. And go ahead and Google it now if you want to. You can pull out your phones, I'll give you permission. Kaohsiung Pier 2 Art Center. It was a dilapidated warehouse area, 11 acres or so, I don't know what it was. But at one point, the forefathers of Kaohsiung, Taiwan said, what if we turn this into an art center? And it's just building upon building upon building of retail space, exhibition space, artist center, workshops that sell their wares. It's just one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And I can't paint, I can't dance, I can't do any of that stuff. It was just a cool experience to be in that environment. Last year, as I was coming home, literally got off a plane in Chicago, turned my cell phone on, and learned that the previous mayor had resigned. 2 weeks later, fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm appointed mayor. 2 days after that, I'm meeting with the Greater Port Clinton Area Arts Council, and one of the things we were talking about in that meeting was this Pier 2 Art Center. The safety service director and I looked at each other and almost had that, you could see the light bulb above each other. You know, we have this old city garage, 317 West Perry Street. It's the yellowish brick building on West Perry Street across from the Jet Express parking lot. What if we made arrangements with the Greater Port Clinton Area Arts Council to turn that into our very own Pier 2 Art Center, or whatever name they choose to use, and allow the same things that I saw in Kaohsiung, Taiwan, to happen in Port Clinton, Ohio? Because let me tell you folks, when I talked to the residents of Kaohsiung about that area, what I saw was nothing like it had been in previous years. It was an area of town nobody wanted to go to. Well, now it had coffee shops and music venues, and the apartments on the upper floors were all occupied. It brought new life, new revitalization to that area. They actually installed a light rail system from the downtown area, the 10 blocks, to the Pier 2 Art Center, because so many people wanted to come and visit it. I just hope we can take advantage of that. Over that time period, we've been talking with the Greater Port Clinton Area Arts Council. They created their own steering committee, their own group of people to figure out, okay, what does this building need in its current condition to make it what their vision is? And that answer is about $1.5 to $2 million. They think they have that. Just recently, they submitted a lease agreement. Sorry, I won't touch anything, I promise. They recently submitted a lease agreement. We're in the process of reviewing that, although we're very, very close. And so we're hoping that very, very soon, the city of Port Clinton will have its own, whatever you want to call it, Pier 2 Art Center. So that's, for those of you that enjoy art, it's awesome. And for those of you that don't, I'm sure you will enjoy the things that come out of that space and that emotion that's going to happen down there.
Yeah, one thing that would appeal to, now One thing that would appeal to a lot of you, high school kids in the audience, is that it's a place, like one thing, I was sat at a meeting on it last night. Imagine if you guys could go, guys, you could take your girl on a date to sushi roll on a Friday night, like learn how to roll sushi. They're gonna be doing stuff like that, like classes like that. Or Mark, if you wanted to go to stand-up comedy, they're gonna have like comedy nights and stuff like that. So it's gonna be all the arts, music, visual arts, everything in one place, like one central hub. And it does have a name, but I don't want to say the name yet because
I don't even know.
Yeah. But it's gonna be a cool spot. I think the plan is to have it open early next year, right?
That's the hope, not good.
So another cool thing coming to downtown.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Mark, the comedian, is he doing a Red Talk? Somebody want to
He
meet
did one on Tuesday.
Was it funny?
No, it wasn't funny. Okay. So
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, Mayor Mike